Hello and welcome to this introductory video on finding case law at JCU Library. We can't talk about finding case law and legislation without mentioning the legal research process, and that begins with looking at secondary sources. So they're things like books, commentaries, journal articles, encyclopedias, and dictionaries, and they're written by experts and often explain and analyse key points of law. The simplest way to put it is that secondary sources talk about the law and often point you towards primary sources of law such as case law and legislation. Primary sources are the law, and you're usually required to cite these primary sources in your assignments. When we talk about finding case law, broadly, there's two ways that you would encounter when you're looking for cases. Number one, you know the citation or party names, that is, you know the case that you're after. Maybe you've seen the citation in a textbook or your lecturer has mentioned it. Or number two, you want to find case law on a particular topic. That is, you don't know what specific case you're after, you're just looking for cases on a specific area of law. Now for number two, I would suggest that you start the legal research process. So go to secondary sources related to your topic because they will inevitably point you towards the key cases and legislation in that area. For number one today, that's what we're going to focus on. If you know the citation or the party names, we're going to talk about how to locate those sources using JCU resources. So case citations. This is really important for you to understand the differences between different case citations and it helps you to locate these sources more readily if you understand what case citations are. So let's talk about it. They're a uniform way of referring to a case and they give details on where the case can be found. So understanding a case citation means knowing how to decipher the numbers and letters behind the party names and therefore being able to locate that written judgment of a particular case. So I've got three examples listed down the bottom. If you want to take a second to pause the video and note down those citations, note the differences between them and how I use them as examples in the following slides. Case law can be separated broadly into two types, unreported cases and reported cases. So unreported judgments are judgments that are either too recent to be reported on or published in a law report series, or they're not considered sufficiently important enough to even go on to be published. And many courts have introduced what we call medium neutral citations to assist in the consistent citation of these online resources. Reported cases are judgments that are officially published in a law report series. So if you think about books on a shelf being published, cases will be reported on and published in a law report series. And really it's those cases that deal with significant points of law that will go on to be published as valuable precedent in a law report. Of those reports, a special set is called the authorized reports, and they're the preferred copies to be cited when that's available. Let's have a look at unreported cases a little bit further and what a medium neutral citation looks like. We've got those three citations or cases that I mentioned earlier. But you'll notice that the citations may look a little bit different. They start with the party names, the year of decision, the name of the court abbreviated, and a sequentially assigned judgment number. So for Rowe and Kemper, that case was heard in the Queensland Court of Appeal in 2008, and it was the 175th to be heard. The same with R v Crabb, that was heard in the High Court of Australia in 1985, and it was the 22nd. And lastly, we have Mabo in Queensland, also heard in the High Court of Australia in 1992, and that was the 23rd case to be heard. In order for you to be able to start recognising what a medium neutral citation looks like is to look for that C in the middle there. So Queensland Court of Appeal, High Court of Australia. Medium neutral citations are assigned by the courts themselves. Let's have a look at reported cases, and they're either organised by volume number or by year. So let's take a look at Rowe and Kemper. It is organised by year. To locate this book on a shelf, we would go to the section where the Queensland reports were held. We would look on the spine of the book for the year 2009, and you notice that there is a 1 there between that and the law report name. So that 1 indicates that it's the first volume of 2009. So there might be 2 or there might be 3. If you opened the book then to page 247, you would see the starting page of that judgment. And it's really imperative for you to know that that whole citation is needed to locate the case. So if you're going to a database, you would type in 2009 as the volume number, 1 QDR 247 in order to retrieve that case. Looking down the bottom at RV Crab, it is organised by volume number. So we have volume 58 of the Australian Law Reports starting at page 417. You might be a bit confused because we can see that there's a year there in round brackets. That's just a piece of extra information for you, and it's not necessary to locate the case. That year, 1985, just indicates when that case was heard. So if you wanted to locate this on the shelf, you would go to the section where the Australian Law Reports are, you would look for volume 58 and open it to page 417. If you were to look for this case in a database, the only information really that you would need to type in would be 58 ALR 417 and it should bring you back that case. So if you've been observant, you may have noticed that for each of those cases I've been using different citations. And it's important to know that a case may have more than one citation, and we call these collectively parallel citations. So take a moment to pause this video and have a look at how many places these cases can be found. Can you tell the medium neutral citation for each of these cases on this list? Let's take a closer look at Mabo and Queensland. And if you spotted it, you would know that the medium neutral or unreported citation, so the citation straight from the courts, is 1992 HCA 23. Obviously, Mabo and Queensland, very important case. It went on to be officially published in different law report series. So we've got references to 3 law report series, and I've got them listed down the bottom there. We've got the Australian Law Journal Reports, ALRJ, and then we have the Australian Law Reports, ALR. I've separated the Commonwealth Law Reports, CLR, because they're the authorised report series, and this is the citation. This is the judgment that you should read and use in your assessment and in court. Let me explain that a little bit further. There is a preferred version of a case for you to use in your assignments and in court, and you must use that authorised version of a case when it is available. Each jurisdiction in Australia has a preferred law report series to use. For example, from the High Court of Australia, it's the Commonwealth Law Reports. Let's take a look at a couple of resources which help understand this a little bit further. So the first of those resources was the Australian Guide to Legal Citation, and we're on to the 4th edition at the moment. If you scroll down, we're in the Domestic Sources Cases section, and I want to take you to Rule 2.2.2 Law Report Series on page 50. And it reads that the authorised version of the report should always be used when it's available. And there's a preference or a hierarchy for which version you should use. If a case has been reported or published in an authorised report series, for example, the CLRs, then you would use that version. If it didn't go on to be published in the CLRs for whatever reason, then you would use the one below, or the one below that. So there you can see that there are many other law report series around. If a case wasn't officially published in a law report series, and some cases, you know, that's just what happens, then it's fine for you to use the medium neutral citation. But it's always important for you to check to see if a case has been reported firstly in an authorised report series, or if it's been, you know, published in an unauthorised normal law report. People often ask me, how do I know what law report series is authorised in Australia? If we go back to the Australian Guide to Legal Citation and take a look at 2.2, which we looked at earlier, but then scroll down to 2.2.3 on page 51, abbreviations for report series, it does list the most commonly cited Australian authorised report series. Let's also take a look at the practice direction of the Supreme Court of Queensland. So this is 16 of 2013, and I'm just going to scroll down. It gives you the purpose and then it talks about citations. So when citing a judgment to the court, A citation of the judgment from a set of authorised reports is to be preferred. B, if no such report is available, a citation of the judgment from another set of accredited reports is to be preferred. And then C, if none of those are available, the unreported version may be cited. Okay, so these are rules that you must follow when you're out in practice in court as well. So it's really good to get into the habit and know how to check if a case has been reported in an authorised law report series. So you're probably asking, how can I check to see if a case has been reported in an authorised report series? Use what we call a case citator. And case citators provide information on where to find cases. The citator lists all of the report series in which a case is reported, and it gives you some great extra information. So later cases in which the case was looked at by the court, whether it was considered, followed, distinguished or overruled, really important when you're noting up or tracing the judicial history of a case. It would also mention any statutes, legislation that have been judicially considered within the case, journal articles written about the case as well as some extra information for you. So it's really a great starting point for your case law research. Examples of case citators that we have access to here at JCU are CaseBase, which is on the Lexis Advanced Pacific platform, KeyCite, which is on the database Westlaw Australia, and LawCite, which is freely available via Ostley. I have just opened up LawCite via Ostley, which is a freely available database for you to use. And I'm just going to pop that medium neutral citation for the Mabo case in there. So 1992 HCA 23. Let's pretend I didn't know if it was reported anywhere else, and that was the only citation I had. I'm going to hit search, and you can see here it brings me the citation details for the Mabo case, and you'll notice that the authorized reported version is here as well as other places. Just wanted to briefly mention what are legal databases, and sometimes this background information helps you use the databases a little bit more. Essentially what they are publisher platforms, and they hold case law, legislation, commentaries, including encyclopedias and dictionaries, journals, or unique tools like those case citators that I mentioned. And the main publishers of legal information, both in Australia and internationally, are LexisNexis, and Lexis Advanced Pacific is the database that we use to access Australian resources. Thomson Reuters Westlaw, Westlaw Australia is the database that we use to access Australian resources. Wolters Kluwer is the publisher of the database CCH, and the Incorporated Council of Law Reporting, or ICLR, for those English cases as well. Lastly, I just quickly showed you LawCite on Ostley, which is the Australian Legal Information Institute. That's a freely available law resource that we have as well. I also wanted to mention legal abbreviations at JCU Library. So now you know a little bit more about the citations, the different kinds of citations and how to recognize them. But obviously, you know, there are hundreds, thousands of legal abbreviations in Australia and around the world. So we've created a list of the most commonly used legal abbreviations for you to quickly find which database a law report series lives in. Obviously, publishers hold different rights to hold different law report series. So the Commonwealth Law Reports, for example, are on Westlaw. So you would need to go to Westlaw in order to access those authorised reports. We also have physical holdings in Cairns and Townsville, and that legal abbreviations guide will list them as well if you want to take a look at the physical book, but most cases these days are obviously held online. Let me show you how to get there. From the library homepage, we have our Guides tab, and simply type in Law. Click on the Law Guide, and you can see we have our Getting Started page for Law at JCU. If you come across the top two legal abbreviations, you'll be taken to our guide. So for example, if we're looking for the Commonwealth Law Reports, we just click on C, and then we scroll down until we find it. So we've got the Commonwealth Law Reports on Westlaw Australia, as well as the holdings in Cairns and Townsville. So all you need to do is click on Westlaw Australia. Depending on where you are, it might take you onto the sign-on page. At this point, don't sign in with your username and password, just click Access through an Australian academic institution and select JCU. Hit continue and you'll be taken to the landing page for the Commonwealth Law Reports. You can either search up the top for the citation, or you can navigate down the bottom by publication volume or anything else. So lastly, a few things to remember. Not every journal article, case, or resource lives on one single database. You have to check them all. Often students ask me, what database is best for case law research? The answer is all of them are good. And really, it depends on where the resource lives. So, by checking that legal abbreviations guide to know which database you need to access in order to get it. Always remember your legal research principles. So, secondary sources point to primary sources. Therefore, you should start with secondary sources for your legal research. If you have a known case, always check the case citator for extra information, and that is including whether or not a case has been published in an authorised law report series. Lastly, the law guide via JCU Library should be your home base for research, so always check there for extra tips and information. Thank you.